Earth System Science. I am here to deliver your weekly agenda for November 16th, 2020. This is the week where we jump into and deliver a lot of information about the Caring for Our Watersheds project, which we introduced last week. Okay, and so ideally you came in this week with the highlighted 2 or 3 problems that you had identified in the watershed. This week is going to be a lot of documents, but know that we will be working on them for the next several weeks. Okay, so even though this post seems massive and there's a lot to it, keep in mind that because we are now switching after this week to remote, we wanted to touch base with as many people in person as possible to give them all of the instructions that we could to make this project possible. But we'll still be working together after this week on Teams, right? Both days that we meet. And so don't worry and don't stress about trying to get everything done this week. But I'm going to explain the next steps for the project. Okay, so here we go. Should have come in this week with identified problems from last week. We had been filling out this concept map, right? The last thing we had talked about sort of was, I believe, one example was plastic lids along timberline. Right, that was a very specific example. You could have had examples dealing with energy conservation, right? Like or energy use, maybe people wasting electricity, leaving lights on. Right, those were example problems, right? This week we are piggybacking off that, and we are actually going to be creating a similar concept map, but now with the solution. Okay, so these are going to be solutions, and this is going to be the other side of your guys' page. And we'll do this in class. This is for the benefit of remote learners. But if we took those plastic lids on timberline as our problem, we could make a concept map associated with possible solutions. Okay, so you could help to solve this problem by, organizing a cleanup day where you get people together and they pick up some plastic trash along timberline. You could also educate people about plastic pollution. Right? These are all possible solutions. You will eventually choose one specific. You could think about how else. You could talk to local businesses about alternatives to plastic. Kind of head them off at the source. You could potentially use art, right? You could write a song. You could create a a painting even, or a poster, something to raise awareness. Right? There's tons of different solutions for every specific problem. And so in class this week, we are going to be working on that first. I'll get to the post here. Possible solutions. Okay, and that's going to be the majority because you have to feel good about the solution. One solution tied to a specific problem. Okay, in order for this project to work. So that's where I think the hardest part is just coming down on one specific solution that you can really dig in on. Okay, so once you have that solution, we have documents here that are going to guide you through the project. The first one is the watershed improvement template. And so once you have your project, right, let's say you were choosing to talk to local businesses about alternatives to plastic, okay? You would have to do some research first, but you can start filling this template out as kind of a guide. Okay, so informing Sonic about plastic alternatives, right? You put your name, and we'll go over this in class, but there are essentially prompts, right? You're going to include the fact that we live in the Cache the Pooter watershed. You'll put a picture of the watershed. I've already filled out some information on this template for you. But importantly, you want to write about and understand what your project is and why you're doing it. Okay, so that's going to be tied directly to your problem. You will then answer these questions as prompts, right? The problem that you're addressing, the environmental impact. You'll talk about how that potentially would affect the quality or quantity of the watershed in the water in the watershed. You'd have a example picture of your problem, right? Picture of, let's say, if you're still using the plastic scenario, plastic in the ditch at Timberline. You then start getting into your solution, right? You have to have a timeline about how to implement your solution, when it's going to happen. You'll have to have a budget associated with what you would need to implement your solution, right? If you're doing a pickup day, how many trash bags, how many items are you going to need to get the trash pickup day going? How are you going to inform people how to do it? Do you have to send out literature or emails or something? Picture of your solution, right? Example. More information about how this is going to benefit the environment of the watershed itself. And then you wrap it up with a conclusion and a visual aid. Okay, so this visual aid is also a decent piece that we'll be talking about this week. Okay, and so we have our own information for the visual aid. It's part of the project, part of the contest. You'll have to create a visual, and we'll be going over this in class, but you'll be using one of these infographic creation tools, right? Maybe Canva, to inform people about your solution, right? If you were doing, this is an example using compost, right? And I'm not going to go through all these, it's posted. But you will want a visual aid that will be eventually added to your template. We have ideas of possible solutions that we'll go over in class. That is there as reference. And then I'm also including the full rubric of the project itself. Okay, I'm not going to go over it in detail. The final project is having you compile all of this in a document that is under 1,000 words, but includes your visual aid. Okay, so you'll notice that there's points associated for the template you fill out. We're using as a scaffold, right? You fill out the template. Once the template's completely filled out, then you'll put in an essay format, right? You'll have to do some editing. You'll include your visual, and that's the entire project. That is it. So we, again, will be taking this all the way to the end of the semester, but because we are switching to remote, this week is going to be a very information-heavy week, with the remainder of time being available for us to help individually. Okay, and so please reach out with questions. I know that seems like a lot to throw at you. This week in person is going to be a lot of explanation, right? So if you can make it in person this week, you're going to be in good shape. But also those that have to be remote, there will be options for you to get help as well, right? Including emailing me or messaging me on Teams. Okay, so reach out if you need me. Otherwise, I'll see you in class. Thanks.